Hi Daniel, welcome.
Hi Adam, nice to meet you again.
Yeah, after 14 years, I think.
Well, in person at least, yeah, or
Yeah.
like live, yeah.
Now, back to the important stuff. What was your first computer?
My first computer, well, I'd say the one I was using a lot. My first computer was actually a Schneider CPC
Hmm.
664, and but it was not in my place because it was actually in a store in a nearby city. I didn't own one, but
Which
I
stock?
wanted.
Quelle, Karstadt or something like this, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, a smaller one. It's a small
Okay.
town. Yeah, but I somehow figured out that there's a computer, and I was lucky in a sense that I had a teacher, a math teacher, who offered additional classes
Hmm.
on computer programming and stuff, and it was completely new. And I went in, and I really loved it. But there was only one computer for like 20 guys, so you had no time where you could actually use it. And then someone told me like in that store they have a computer in the basement, and it's just there to kind of that people can try it out, whatever.
Hmm.
And so I went there and started programming on that computer.
So you started programming. So
Yeah, yeah.
what the first thing you did with computer was programming or playing?
At that time, there was no games on that thing. They just had
Okay.
installed it, and it was just showing the command prompt. And
Okay.
then I thought I had knew a few commands in BASIC from that
Hmm.
school class.
Hmm.
So I started on a classical typewriter at home. I wrote like 10 lines of code, and then I went to the store and tried it out. And sometimes it worked, sometimes not.
Hmm. And why
Yeah,
you did it?
sorry.
Why you did it? I mean, this is
Why I was just kind of fascinated. I actually I think that the teacher did a really good job. He did not just like let us program, but at that time, I mean, it was like early 80s. He
Mhm.
actually had also like a electronic model car, and he kind of wrote a steering with the computer for the car that followed like lanes that were glued on the
That is
on the.
crazy back then.
Yeah, I was crazy cool guy.
Okay.
And so I had feeling like, oh, it's interesting. So I want to try it out. And then, yeah, so I went like 2 or 3 times a week. I went to the store. Problem was after half an hour, normally I was discovered. And then some of the salespersons came and say, hey, go away. This is for everybody. If you block it all the time, nobody can try it out.
Okay.
And so that's why I bought then my first floppy disk. So I could always save before I had to leave. And then I
Your first floppy disk. This is this interesting story.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was the early beginning, let's say, yeah.
And how long it took to have the first program which is working? So
Um, not that long. I maybe 1 2 hours because the first program I remember it was just basically printing a text. I don't remember which text, and then in a loop like adding spaces so that it
okay.
it was like flowing over the screen. It showed was kind of
Yeah,
an animation with text. That was my one of my first
but not Hello
programs.
World, right?
No, it was not Hello World. No,
Yeah,
like
this
yeah,
also. I had already the conversation on the podcast, and for me, Hello World, I didn't knew about Hello World, so it came
same
later.
to me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly.
Same. Yeah.
Okay, and what you actually wanted to build?
I think I had no clear vision. It was just like it was something completely new,
Hmm.
and somehow it attracted me. And then I kind of explored in small steps. What else can you do after this was working? What else can you do? And I mean, there was no internet, there was no YouTube, so there was no inspiration. Nobody knew about these things, or
Hmm.
basically nobody. So it just you were on your own. So there's the thing, and let's try it out. And I mean, I think that went on probably for half a year or a year, and then my dad was actually so wise, saying, "Hey, kind of this is interesting stuff for the future." So he paid 1/3 of a first computer. I have an older brother. He paid 1/3, me 1/3, and we put that thing in our basement. And so we had then our own, actually the same model, the Schneider CPC 664, our own
Hmm.
computer. And then we started to explore with these things.
Was it actually expensive back then, if you compare it to today?
I I think it was around 1,000 marks at that
Oh,
time.
okay.
It was quite expensive, but not extremely. Let's say. I mean,
So like an iPhone, maybe now, right?
which wasn't around at that time, but maybe yeah.
Yeah,
But
comparing. So because
yeah, I mean,
thousand marks back then is like 1,000 euro right now, I would say,
yeah,
right?
maybe, yeah, maybe, yeah. But I had no really no real imagination of the figure or stuff like that. Was just happy that we had one in the cellar.
No, but for me, I just thought about that. For me, was back then computers were crazy expensive. This was my perception, and I just wanted to find out, was it just me or they were because
Actually, with the second one, this was the first one, and the second one was Intel 386 SX.
Okay.
And this one, I think, this was maybe 1-2 years later, and this cost like 4,000 D-Marks, and I was like, what the heck?
Yeah.
I mean, that was really crazy. The Schneider one, it was okay. I think they had the problem. I mean, there was Commodore C64. Everybody was that was the game changer. So if you wanted to sell a similar computer with similar capabilities but less popularity, you had to go lower. But that was probably the reason why this was.
So this is what I know. I also had not 3, but I had a Pentium. It was also around 2,000 euros. So I knew this is a lot of money, but I suspected that the early C64 or the Schneiders were really expensive, but they were as expensive as later PCs, right? I think. Okay.
That was my impression or my memory. Yeah.
So okay. So which kind of programs, or have you played at home or just?
Yeah, it's kind of similar as I did in the store than at home. Okay, what can you do with the thing? And games were pretty expensive at that time. So pretty soon I started to write my own games, and of course, if you start, it's not like the super complex thing. So I thought about, okay, what kind of games are around that have some kind of electronics inside, logic and stuff that could be easy to program yourself on a computer. And I remember one of the first things I was writing was Senso. I don't know whether you remember that game. Mm-hmm. That was, I think, from Mattel. There was like electronic box. It basically had 4 buttons on it, every button with a different color. And the game was pretty simple. I mean, the computer started, it would light one of the buttons, and every button was attached with a sound, with a different tune. Mm-hmm. And then it would probably start with yellow. I mean, it's probably a C map. And then it was your turn. You pushed the button, and if it was correct, the computer would start again with the yellow and then add a second one. So the sequence would get longer and longer, and as long as you were able to replay it properly as a human, the computer would continue. And then, so the goal was basically to get as far as possible.
To memorize the sequence, right?
Yeah, exactly. And
so now you are working biotech as DNA research engineer, right? Because you could memorize 10,000 steps.
Not exactly, but I mean that was pretty easy to program and was fun. And I didn't have.
How good were you? How many colors could you remember, or how long was your sequence, roughly? This is interesting.
I think like 60.
Wow.
So I was already playing a musical instrument at that time, so I was pretty good when I could rather remember the melody than the colors. So that's why how I worked on it. I remembered which tune is which color, and so like that I came to 60 something. Yeah.
And the other kids? I don't know how good 60 is. So what is normal?
Yeah, I don't know either. I never owned the electronic game. I never talked to anybody, and I mean the only one who was using that computer was my brother. But for him, that was too boring. He was on another level. Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to know on which level he was.
I can tell. I mean, he's like 3 years older, and he's a very intelligent guy, and he rather used the things to make complex calculations, like the fractals, like with imaginary numbers.
Okay.
And so the whole screen was covered with kind of German you say like the apple apple man.
The
Mandelbrot. Yeah, it's the Mandelbrot.
Yeah, Mandelbrot. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And the only problem was this with that computer at that time. This could last for like 2 or 3 days, and during that time I couldn't use the computer, so that's why I hated those things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, interesting. So, and you never played, right?
No. Then this was kind of so. First, I played the games that I wrote, and then later I kind of bought some games or.
I first played the games I wrote. This is actually this is good.
Well, that's what we had to do, and actually, before I did that, I had one friend who had an Atari like console, and the crazy thing there, I mean, there was these listings in the magazines, right? And we were actually like 2-3 guys. We were typing 15,000 lines of code, assembler stuff, and then finally you had it in like after 4 days, and you saved, and it didn't compile, it didn't work. So you had to check the 15,000 lines as well. I mean, this is what we did before. But at home, simple programs. I tried to write the games, and later I bought some, or actually sometimes you try to hack them because they were so expensive. Sometimes successful, sometimes not. And what I played most is probably like adventures at that time, Monkey Island, so this Lucas art game stuff. Yeah.
So what happens then?
What happened then? I mean, probably again I was lucky. About the same time I was starting like to work a little bit next to school in holidays and stuff. My uncle was running a small company like 15 kilometers away where they did like electronic installations, like steering stuff. And so I was working there sometimes in the as well wiring things and kind of that. Okay. And like a few years later, they started to install computers everywhere for well, the office stuff and for the designing of this wiring things. There's special programs, of course. And I was asked whether I could help the guy who installed these computers. Yeah, of course, I did. And it turned out that this guy wasn't too well educated. Let's say nice guy, but he didn't know much more about computers than I did. And so pretty soon I could help him with the installation of the software and kind of thing, or these kind of things. And then the company said, hey, but if you're good at these things, you can come more often and help us with the installation and stuff. And that's actually how I financed my studies when I started studying. Monday was always off. I went to that company, installed computers, and did all the discussions with the manufacturers of the software if there was bugs and stuff. It wasn't too obvious to explain what's going on and find out what's where the problem is, how you have to install it, and all this kind of thing. So that's what I did. And then I to me it was clear. I mean, that's what I want to do. It was very very interesting and everything. And so after I finished my studies, was clear, let's go somewhere direction IT or especially software development. Yeah.
And what happened from the coding perspective? So your first games, the Mattel, how it's called? Senso, right?
Senso, yeah, Senso.
Yeah, so what happened after Senso, between Senso and your study?
Okay. So I remember the first thing that I completely failed, that I got it to run, but not as good as I wanted. That was like, how you said it, like battleship attack, something like that. So where you're playing two guys, everybody places his ships, and then you kind of throw bombs. You don't see the screen of the other guy. You have to guess where the boats are. These kind of things. And I mean, graphics wise, no problem. But from the logic, this was pretty intense. And I got it to a certain level, but the computer was not strong enough so that I couldn't easily beat him. That was one of the later games that I was actually trying to write.
Computer was not strong enough to make the game playable, or
that I had a hard time to beat him. So like if you like a chess computer, let's say with only basic computation power, then it would be easy for a human player to beat him. That was a little bit the same thing there.
Okay, and you were able to beat the computer or not able?
Yeah, I was. The computer wasn't strong enough, but I wasn't strong enough programmer to make him so strong that I couldn't beat him.
Interesting problem. So I think
it's like reverse stuff. Yeah,
it's actually cool. So I didn't know about that. Because we met at the insurance company, where we had other problems with internationalization and Java E, and now you're coming with the interesting stuff.
That's true. Actually, we met before, but you probably don't remember. That was at a conference. At a conference, and that's I will never forget. It was like maybe 2003 somewhere in I think in Germany, WCHAX or something like that. And there was a podium discussion, and at that time we were on Java E2. And the discussion was and Spring came up, and Java E2 had all its problems, and kind of 90% of the guys thought Spring is the solution. And that podium discussion, you were on it, and like 4 guys from Spring, including the founders and stuff, and everybody kind of expected after this discussion, everybody will go for Spring, and it turned out that everybody would go for Java E after that, because you had so good arguments, you knew all the details and stuff, and that was pretty impressive. So I thought, this guy.
I cannot remember this at all, really. But And then, yeah, it's interesting because I never had a direct discussion with Spring. I never did a Spring a lot, as you know. So it's interesting.
Yeah.
So
That was
but
kind
thank
of the sure. No, it was one of the first things you said was actually I don't know too much about Spring. I know the E part. Yeah. But if you have dedicated problems or like aspects that are not good, whatever, I can try to explain how you would do it in Java E. And to me, it was like super convincing actually to most of the crowd as well.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, but back to you. After Senzo on Battleship, their Battleship was too slow, to beat you. So what you did then? I would buy a larger machine, but I suspect it's not what you did.
Okay. Yeah, maybe that. Yeah. The one thing I remember was actually the first game I was hacking. That was Werner. This was like a German comics thing, and that was
I forgot about this. Is the Werner around? This was like a rocker, right, with a motorcycle.
Yeah. He was building bicycle and all this kind of things. Yeah. And I got the disc from a guy, but well, obviously there was kind of protection, so I couldn't start up. And it turned out that it was well, let's say pretty basic protection. It was just like the names of the files that were used to run the game were kind of hidden on the disk. So I wrote a program that would kind of try out all the combinations with letters and stuff like that to find what files are around on the disk. And then after one night of running, I knew, okay, this is these 8 files, and then I just had to write a startup script basically, put those things in order and start.
But how you found it out? I mean,
there was kind of I think actually I discovered that you couldn't ask. Well, if you did like a directory or stuff like that, they wouldn't show up. But I found out that with the delete command, you could you would get feedback whether this file is existing or not. When you said delete file Adam.com whatever, if it was not around, it would reveal the truth. And so
you're a true hacker. So this is actually a cool idea, right?
Well, at that time it was pretty fun, but I didn't follow that career path. No.
But the interesting. How you found out that there are hidden files? Because there was nothing on disk and it still worked, right? This was the
that was kind of the thing. The only explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, pretty obvious explanation. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. And afterwards, so did it stick with BASIC, or you learned another programming language?
No, well, that was BASIC on the Schneider actually. Pretty early there was another kind of special language that was Logo. I don't know whether
cool. Of course, with the turtle.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I kind of tried to draw stuff with the turtle and think that was all. It was
rotate,
pretty fun.
Left, right, RL.
Yeah.
This is the commands exactly. Go 50 forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Do you have a Mac?
Sorry.
Do you have an Apple Mac?
Yeah. Latest 15 years, but at that time I wasn't working running.
There is a logo for Mac.
Oh, okay.
And I forgot actually the name. You have to search for it. It's open source.
I have to.
And the crazy stuff is you can do system programming with it. So you have access to speak subsystem. I actually forgot the name. But if you search for Apple logo, you will find the software.
Okay.
Yeah, you can install it for free and actually do printing everything, not just the throttle.
Okay, cool. Because I mean, it was very special. It was kind of completely different to other languages because only of that few commands and this kind of things. Nice.
It actually looks like assembly, right? Because over 2 letters and then
cool. Yeah. And then after Logo, then kind of did some Turbo Pascal stuff at school and university. And actually, the first language I was professionally working with was SmallTalk. And actually, I loved it. And the probably special story there is at that time.
So you went from BASIC to SmallTalk.
Yeah. With little bit of Turbo Pascal in the
Object People SmallTalk or what? Which one?
Visual Age SmallTalk.
Visual Age. IBM's.
Yeah. Started with like once. Actually, the time that I started at the company, it was a big Swiss bank. They just made the switch from Envy SmallTalk to Visual Age. That was 1.0 Visual Age, and then we stick there with like until.
This was after your study. So in study you worked.
Yeah. Actually, my first job. Yeah.
And during your study, any other programming language?
Turbo Pascal. Yeah. Actually, I studied physics, and mathematics, and like IT was just like a side matter because.
And you enjoyed studying or not?
I enjoyed it. Let's say what was kind of unexpected to me was at that time in Germany, if you did like your Abitur, you had to choose two main topics, and that was for me was math and physics. And because like I always say, like if you have the gene, the math gene, it's no work, right? It's very easy to when if you are kind of wired the way that you are easily grasp the concepts and everything, you don't have to learn much. That's why I always loved those things. And the funny thing was when I then went to university, kind of changed the physics part. It turned out that I had such a good or like demanding teacher at school that for the first 2 years physics was basically running. I had heard already all these kind of things that for the first 2 years it was super easy. And then it was like 2 math lessons. The one was also very easy, and the other one I didn't understand anything. It was just like crazy high level stuff. But it turned out it was actually the professor who was just like crazy wired. And so I had to struggle with that one math lesson. All the rest was pretty nice. And yeah, I enjoyed it, and I had enough time with could always take the Monday off. So I had my work where I worked with computers. I earned some money. And was a cool time, yeah.
Interesting math. You say you like math or not? For me, it was like at school. If I look at the formulas and the entire math, I didn't like that at all. I don't know. For me, it was like it looked like I don't know. So artificial stuff, which pointless, completely pointless and superfluous, right? So like who needs that? Yeah. And now. If I think about this, for me, is math almost like programming. So it is very, very. I see the parallels everywhere between math and programming. Yeah. But back then, I just said, okay, whatever. I don't care a lot about math. Just skip that and do something different. And now I will actually appreciate math. But if back then I remember, look at the math book at school. And I say, okay, what they want from me, this is somehow, I know how it works, but I know why it's so strange, all in different characters, and I just hated the entire approach, how the teachers teach math, with the entire ceremony as, okay, what's going on here. And in study, the prof said, okay, we do everything from scratch. It's like, okay, now is my chance, to learn everything from scratch. And then I enjoyed that, but it was crazy fast. So I think in the first week we did whatever we did before, but still then I enjoyed it somehow. And but was still I enjoyed programming more than later, right? So right now I'm really interested. So if I find some times I would even read some math books. But it's interesting to say it's not like for me it was not like either you like math or not. I only I would like to learn something, but I have to know why. Just to learn new strange characters, for me, it was I'm pointless, so I don't care. This was a little bit interesting.
Well, actually, like in the similar direction, but I realized like when I think, well, you have math earlier in school than physics, and when physics came on top, that was for me like the justification why I should learn some of the formulas, because then you get like practical you can actually use him for something that you grasp,
and
right?
in my case, not. They were not synced. This was not. There was no relation between physics and math. This was like was not well done in my case. So this was the problem. One question to you, because you studied math. I asked the question several guests already because I'm interested in it. If now or 20 years or whenever you studied 2 years ago, if you look at a crazy complex math formula. Is it like you look at code, so you know what's going on, or you have to look at it differently? There are crazy, complicated math formulas. If a good mathematician sees the formula, is for him this like code or more like a pattern? What I mean?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that if a good mathematician sees it, it's for him the same as for us the code. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. For me, I'm too far away there, but I always kind of still found it fascinating that with this complex formula, I mean, the similarity is you also can divide it in pieces, right?
Yeah, refactoring.
And you start with one term and try to analyze it. That's very similar to the program thing. Overall, the overall thing is incredibly complex, but if you put it or divide it in smaller parts, then you can still grasp what's going on, yeah.
Okay, cool. So,
But they wouldn't call me a good mathematician. No, for sure.
Nobody studied mathematics,
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so you learned two Pascal at school, but lots of math, and then NV and Visual H for SmallTalk happened.
Yeah. And the really funny thing, because I never heard another guy saying that. No, first one thing, like the cool thing with the Visual H was I was just lucky that I came into the team. It was pretty small, like it was like 10 guys who were doing SmallTalk in that whole bank with I don't know how many hundreds of IT guys, and the majority was doing C and C++ projects, yeah. And they all had, with the huge projects, they all had the same problem, memory allocation and this kind of thing. So they had memory leaks all over the place. All the big project had enormous delay because they couldn't really handle those things. And with SmallTalk, we didn't have that problem at all. So I was pretty happy, and I really enjoyed it and everything. But then in 97, I mean, Java came out. Or 96 it came out. In 97 I got the chance to do my first class, and I said, yeah, let's go for it. I went in, and I hated it, and simply because why the hell did the guys not use that elegant style of SmallTalk, like in this kind of words pattern, but why did they have to use the syntax, which is much more technical? And later I realized, I mean, there's only one explanation, is they wanted to make sure that they attract all the C++ guys, so they had to make it kind of look similar to that. Mm-hmm. But the other concepts, garbage collection, all these kind of things, virtual machine, that was all from SmallTalk. So at some point I said, okay, it's a fair compromise. They had to attract the C++ guy, but I happily jumped on Java because I really liked that concept with the virtual machine and everything. And of course, there was one big advantage, that it was already compiled. SmallTalk being interpreted, the images were huge, and it was pretty slow in execution. And that was much better with Java then.
I was maybe 2002 in a project with SmallTalk programmers who were forced to migrate to Java because the SmallTalk runtime was no more supported, and they had to use Java. Yeah. And they didn't like Java, and I helped them, or was supposed to help them to migrate. And this was actually interesting. At the beginning, they also hate me, but I had just, I was assigned, so can you help them? So of course. And but I remember they had interesting concepts. For instance, they had meta inheritance. And I said, they asked me, what about meta inheritance in Java? It's like, what are you talking about? And they explained me what they want, and we found a pattern. I never used this actually in Java. What they had Java class. Within the class, there was inner class, and we inherited the inner class, and they were happy. So exactly this is what we have, in meta inheritance in SmallTalk. So I will never do this in Java, but if you are happy, I helped you, Okay. So we had at the end a really strange concept, but it worked perfectly because what we did, the entire system was object-oriented JPA. It was highly complex, and we had just a view facets with the persistence. And the and the entire graph or whatever it was calculated itself, like in SmallTalk. In SmallTalk was the same. And also what they were crazy about were blocks. They also asked me, how to do blocks in Java. It's like, what do you mean by block? It's just a block. It's like, we don't have blocks. And back then there was no Java 8. So I think they wanted to have something like lambdas. This is what they always showed me. The block. This is just a block, and the block has state. It's like, we don't inner class. Yeah, but it's ugly. So, okay, what we can do, right? So this was my relation to the SmallTalk guys, and the Java program, the Java project was actually really great. The only problem was the company's architect was a true enterprise architect, and we didn't have any layers, no plugins. This was an Eclipse project. And he wanted to have 10 plugins and layers. And I said, okay, we can do this, but it works fine without the layers and plugins. And he was never happy. So this was the story with SmallTalk.
Cool. And what did the guys say about the syntax? I mean, SmallTalk is super elegant to read.
Yeah, they hated that. Also, what they hated is they showed me these SmallTalk that they can. What they edited was the program, so there was no distinction between IDE on the runtime, right? And in Java back then there was Eclipse, and this was ugly. We had AND back then, right? So this was no comparison to SmallTalk. So they hated the entire thing, of course, but they had no chance because this was the contract from them. So this was an external company of developers who provided to another extended company software. And I was asked by the paying company to help the other company to make it successful. And it was successful, actually. So the amazing thing is that the SmallTalk developers, without any Java knowledge, managed to deliver the entire system with the remaining budget, which was like a 5% of the budget. And 95% before was burned on, documentation and architecture diagrams on meetings or whatever. So, and in the last few weeks or few months, I don't remember anymore, we implemented the system. And at the end, we had really fun. So with it. So cool. They somehow liked me and I liked them. I learned also some concept from them because there were concepts which were very unusual in Java. Right?
Yeah. There's one thing that I will never forget in SmallTalk, and that I don't know exactly what I used it for, but it was crazy. There was like the option to override the method does not understand for any object.
This is method not exist. This is also other. So we can call method which doesn't exist and do something with it, right?
And like that, we did some kind of generic stuff. Like we made objects behave in completely, crazy manner just by overriding this method. Was extremely powerful, but of course extremely dangerous. It was super hard to kind of debug or whatever. Mm-hmm. But this is something I always appreciate.
This is why I think in some dynamic languages like Ruby or Groovy, they did parsers with it. Because if you invoke, the tags and they do not exist, but remember how this was called, and you can remember what.
Was similar thing, yeah.
So SmallTalk was visualized for Java, and then how long did you? What I understood, you liked really SmallTalk, and then you switched to Java, right? So what is it? How long you stick with SmallTalk?
1.5 years, not that long, or maybe two, yeah.
And then Java came in, Java 1.1. Yeah. Which one? You remember?
1.03.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Then I think you also Visual H for Java, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This was at the same company, so they migrated from SmallTalk to Visual H for Java. What I didn't like in Visual H for Java at all is the fact you never saw the entire source code. You remember this? Yeah. If you click at the method, you saw just the method. If you click at the class, you only the class body, I think with the attributes. And to see the entire method, you had to to print it or export it somewhere. And I never used Visual H for Java. I started Visual H for Java in the year 2001, maybe. So it was Java 1.2 later. And I started before with JBuilder and Semantic Visual Cafe and Java Studio Workshop, Java Studio.
Yeah, I was working with other IDEs as well, but like Visual Cafe was insanely unstable. It was like with larger projects, we had
I tried everything. I just like the look at. I just like switching between IDEs because every IDE was a little bit different. What I remember, the Semantic Visual Cafe was able to generate something like GraalVM now a static image. The JBuilder was really good with swing and refactoring.
The UX designer.
Yeah,
the UI designer. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I wanted to try the Code Warrior. But never managed. Yeah. This was a cool IDE back then, Code Warrior. But I never. We have to find it somewhere and just launch it just for fun. But and then came Visual H for Java, and I was not custom just to look at a method. I couldn't understand the code. I remember now it would be a problem. But back then I just wanted to see the entire thing. And so sometimes I printed the class, to understand what's going on. This is what I remember was Visual H for Java. Yeah, the other thing what was like strange when you came from Visual H for SmallTalk, that actually like 30% of the features they had in the SmallTalk IDE that were missing in Java, and that was really really crazy. Like one thing I actually knew, this was my first plugin as I was writing then, was like you had like projects where you organized your code, and if you had some layering you would use for the whole one application to run, you would probably need 10 projects. Mm-hmm. And in SmallTalk, there was a concept of something that you could kind of bundle 10 projects or any number of projects, and he would load the ones in the dedicated versions that you were indicating directly in your IDE. And in the Java world, that was missing, and it was like such a huge backstep. So that was the first plugin that I was writing, that you kind of stored it in text, but you could at least automatically load it, because else would lose so much time. But thankfully, what happened, my Visual H for H project was too big, And the Visual H for Java stored the entire thing in an internal database. It was called Envy, I think, right?
Yeah.
And this crashed. So
the
we had to move to
repository,
something else, to Eclipse back then, and this was better. So this is,
Same here. We switched then also to Eclipse,
Okay, cool. So what happened then? So you are then Eclipse Java guy, and you just hacked something at the company, and you did something in leisure, in your leisure with with programming or not?
When I had started programming, I was still basically gaming in my leisure time, and after that I did some minor project. I don't remember too much because it was pretty intense, and I actually. Too often I kind of took the problems from work home and kind of tried to find more elegant solution and this kind of things. Mm-hmm. So there was not too much time to do my own project stuff. And one interesting thing that I remember was then I was also working for a bank, and I think that was probably with JDK 1.3. And with the bank, obviously you have to work with currencies and stuff like that. And we had our own class for currencies. Mm-hmm. And then I think with the 1.3, there was a currency class in the JDK. We said, hey, cool, let's switch to that. Of course, we can drop all the custom code. It was fine, but then there was the war and kind of new nations will show up around Yugoslavia and all these countries there. And at a certain point, we needed a currency which was not in the JDK. And no problem, it should be extendable, right? But it wasn't. It was actually, there was no way, or no legal way, let's say, to use a currency in the system with the Java currency class that was not foreseen. They had hard-coded, crazy, I mean, in the JDK, hard-coded, they had this currency exist, basically. Well, with the 3 digits, at 3 letters, abbreviations. And what we had to do was decompile the JDK, manipulate that class, add the currency we needed, recompile and ship it to 200 clients in the company so that we could still work with the Java currency class.
So a highly legal
exactly. Yeah, exactly. But the only option. I mean, there was so many cool things, but I didn't understand at that time that Java was already really widely used, right? Was there though, I don't know, no code review or whatever? How could that happen that the guy who designed that class had such a bad day that he would make it not extendable?
Maybe it was on purpose that they say, okay, this is like security leak, if you make it extendable, someone could replace the currency, whatever. I think this would
could be. Could be.
They were really strict and
Yeah, but it was kind of strange, yeah.
Okay, nice. So then, JDK 1.3 and Eclipse. Then you switch the companies, or?
Yeah, I like every, I don't know, 3-4 years basically. Mm-hmm. But never always when either there was no more no more challenge, or some companies kind of they switched from custom development to just buying a one size fits all solution. Mm-hmm. And I always wanted kind of to hack, so I was in financial industries, but also in IT companies. Always with Java, and pretty soon I started to develop more in direction of architecture. I had the luck that in many companies we kind of it made sense to build some kind of frameworks, basic layers. There was no JPA, for example, so mm-hmm. we wrote basically like SQL generator, like at first a kind of persistence layer. I remember in one company I was writing such a layer, but it was really cool, and then we discovered later that if you're using prepared statements, it was much faster execution because of mm-hmm. the caching and everything mm-hmm. in the database. And actually it took like 2 days to modify that layer, that it was now using prepared statements instead of the old one way before. And this kind of thing, this was pretty motivating. And other base libraries for, I don't know, file access, whatever. I mean, the JDK or Java wasn't delivering so much out of the box. There were not so many third-party libraries. So I was basically working with these things, and I was kind of interesting how to have to refactor. You were using first application, try to separate the libraries, and then you're writing the second application, and you would realize, okay, this is not really generic. It was only working for the first case, so you have to adapt it. And so that I pretty soon learned that testing is important, that I wanted to have huge test coverage so that I really dare to adapt the libraries and these kind of things. and then I went more and more in direction of architecture actually. Yeah.
Okay, but as we met, you were already architect. We coded a lot. I remember.
Yeah. But I mean, I was always of the opinion that say like being a kind of a software architect is basically hopefully a good developer. I never met a good architect who has not been a good developer. But like caring about things, conceptual things, where many other developers are probably not interested in. Yeah, and I was there in the architect role exactly. But and the reason why I brought or hired you basically there was that we had the challenge that we had an architecture that was completely end of life, and Java E5 was showing up at the horizon, and of course I wanted to have something modern, and we had like 150 developers at the company, so like 7 architects, and I was the lead architect, and there was kind of gremium where we met once a week and discussed things and stuff, and it was just impossible to convince the guys that we have to go for a completely new path, new approach, and use the new features, because most of those guys, they've been in that company for forever. They only knew that one architecture, and they compared everything, every new idea we brought up, they compared with the existing one, which actually had its problems. So I was more of the opinion that let's cut the old stuff, let's see what's now available. And with Java E5, we had also the problem with the application servers at that time. We were on WebLogic, and I think it was the WebLogic 10 version wasn't spec conform. There were so many problems. You read the spec, you programmed something, and it would just not work on the WebLogic server. That was the point where I hired you to kind of show us what we can do with the stocks things that just came with Java E5. And probably, if required, add some libraries like Spring or whatever. It turned out we didn't need that. And also with the application server, you came with the Glassfish, and then we had the things running on Glassfish, and was much leaner, and it was actually spec conform. So
what I only remember is that you had, or someone, I don't know whether you or someone else, this is interesting, you had a presentation, and there was New World on that. This was New World architecture, this is what I remember. And then I saw the WebLogic, and I saw the new architecture was basically the same as the old one. And there was a meeting, and I say, I don't do this. I mean, this is not New World. This is just, a small patch. So either we rename it but this is not what I was hired for. And then it's escalated a bit. And what happened then, you're right, with the Glassfish. So we managed to make it work on WebLogic. I remember we had lots of proof of concepts or whatever. And then Glassfish happened. And what I remember is I asked someone, who decides actually between WebLogic and Glassfish? And someone says a manager. I was like, okay, can we meet him? And the discussion stopped. So yeah, maybe. And then I said, okay, then let's try it. And we went to lunch with him. You remember? And he was the nicest guy ever. And he said, and I explained him with the Glassfish. And he asked me, how expensive is Glassfish? He says, free. So okay. And why we are not doing this right now? So I have no idea. But if you can decide, then decide. And he was really so nice. And then you told me that the manager met another company and also promoted Glassfish in the other company afterwards. This is what you told me then, that the manager was so happy with the Glassfish. They met, golfing or whatever they did. And he asked, the other companies, do you know about Glassfish? They said, no, we're running WebSphere. So, okay, you should also try Glassfish. This is what happened. This is what I remember. But I don't remember what we exactly did in the project. We coded a lot. I remember there are some issues with JNDI. I also remember. And we deleted a lot of interfaces and factories, of course. This is what were people against us, but everything worked. And with Glassfish we could delete more. If you use Glassfish, the architecture was even leaner. This was the idea back then. Absolutely. So I was 2 months there, right? Once a week or something. I think there was a little break, and then you came back again. Yeah, but it was a cool time, intense time. Yeah. And the problem was, and that this is kind of funny. It's still around in the whole financial industry in Switzerland. You always have to have a reference, even for some technical stuff. Many people always want to have a reference in the same area, like also in financial industry. Mm-hmm. I don't get it. I mean, we're talking about some underlying technology, but still, that's why
we probably needed that lunch with the manager. And I remember that guy, really cool guy. I still have contact with him.
And greetings to him if he remembers.
Yeah, cool, sure. And I met that was actually one of the reasons that I later left.
What I wondered, no one asked the question, who decides that? Could we do this? And then, everything was silent. Yeah, in theory, we could ask the guy, and if his time's okay, then it was like the next lunch, of course. He was there, he was the nicest guy ever. It was not a problem at all, actually, for me.
Well, this guy actually was kind of, it wasn't that my direct report, but in terms of, being a lead architect, he was my kind of direct report. And I had several occasions where I also was stuck. I couldn't get the gremium to do decision. Yeah. And then I just went to that guy and said, listen, I see it like that, and these are the facts and stuff. And if he said, yeah, okay, he agreed with it, I had no problem convincing the other guys. It was like a rather hierarchical structure at that time. And sometimes then it's a lot faster if you have just one guy decide and go for it. Mm-hmm. Because if you decide as a, let's say, normal developer, whatever, you have to carry the consequences as well. And a lot of guys, I don't know whether they had a bad experience with wrong decisions, but it was not really like a fault-tolerant culture at that time, at least.
Yeah, I just remember. So actually, the team was nice, but this particular situation was interesting for me. That no one actually thought about the most obvious things to ask someone who gives actually the money whether it is okay to do this.
But the fun fact. I mean, I think I left like 1 year later. And 2 years later, they migrated back to WebLogic.
To WebLogic?
Yeah.
and now they're still running WebLogic, maybe, right?
I don't know. No, actually, rather the JBoss stuff. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So, and what happened then to you? So you did some content management stuff, I remember, right?
Actually, in between the insurance and the content management stuff, I actually I wanted to kind of buy an existing company where a guy wanted to retire soon. It was also like a software products thing, but I actually was doing that for 9 months. It was cool. It was in maintenance, and the cool thing was like 90% of the companies did not have software to manage their maintenance. And it was very easy to sell. You just say, okay, if your delivery chain stops for 1 day, how much do you lose? I don't know, 10,000 francs. Okay, here's a software, 2,000 francs will help you prevent 90% of these cases, basically selling itself. But it was like technically really in a bad shape and everything. And I tried to, at that time in my leisure, I rewrote it with, what was it? Eclipse RRP. Like a technology where you had like web front end and set.
Was it actually nice, this wrap?
For I only did POCs, but for the POCs it was pretty nice in the sense that I was pretty sure that with this software I needed have fat clients and the web client, and I was never a good web developer, so I could just one size fits all basically the approach. That was the thing I liked about it, and also with was basically you could use like the Eclipse plugin system with if you needed several areas in the screen and resizing, or this kind of things came basically out of the box. That was pretty nice, but I never went to production anything.
Okay.
But after 9 months, actually everything looked good, but we couldn't get agree on price and other things with the owner, so it kind of didn't work out. And then I went at that time small company that was doing content management. Was like 13 guys. I was the number 13 actually, and I stayed there for like 5.5 years. 5.5 years. And in that time it grew like to over 100 employees with several locations.
That's interesting experience, right? Yeah. So
and that was actually I was super lucky in a term of that the developers were crazy good. When I joined, there were like 5 developers. And I saw the product before, when I was applying for the job, and then they demonstrated me the product, and it was insanely powerful. And I just couldn't grasp how 5 developers could have written such a software. And so I joined there. It was really cool. I learned a lot. They were really great guys. And next to the programming, what I learned there really was like really true agile development, because it was really self-organized, and I'd say really boundaries were really, really wide. There was no no time tracking for nobody, and I just really a lot of trust in the employees, and it was crazy. I didn't know that before, and with 5 developers, easy, one kind of agile team. Later were more teams, and so I didn't realize at that time, but it was for me a completely different mindset if you kind of work, because in the financial industry before that was rather hierarchical, of course. And everybody could have a say and tell his ideas and stuff. That was really cool.
One question, because the company grew. My expectation with growth is that the fun and the quality goes away. It is really hard to maintain the spirit of a small team in a large company.
That's true. And I think the main problem there was probably that the company grew too fast. Mm-hmm. Because I did all the hirings at that time, the hirings interview, and sometimes I had like, 15, 20 hirings interview a week. And there was not enough talent. And but still, like, the pressure was always there to hire guys. And let's say the average level of developers in any sense was going down then with getting the company getting larger. That's true, yeah.
And maybe then the really developers, the code developers also will lose their motivation if they find out that everything becomes more political and less focus on quality.
Well, some did, some are still around. But that was one of the problems, and also like what was disappearing a little bit was the spirit, because when we were so small, I remember many nights, many weekends also, that we kind of hacked and kind of tried to get some releases out, and it was a really kind of special feeling and nice teamwork. Yeah. Also, what was a great experience. I mean, the more than 80% of the code from that product was actually open source. So they had like 2 flavors: open source and commercial version. Mm-hmm. And the open source version was already really strong, and most of the code was there. So that meant at that time, anything you committed, potentially 5 minutes later you would get a comment, or like we had an IRC chat with all the developers in. From, I don't know, Singapore, someone would say, "Hey, why did you do it like that?" And it was like, I never had such direct feedback from so many people, and it was pretty challenging, because you had to think twice. Then you don't want to be the stupid guy who just committed something which was not working perfectly, right? So that was really all this open source things and community. That was really, really crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
Very good time. Yeah.
And then it was no more challenge for you, because company was too big, so you change again.
Somehow there still was the challenge. I actually believed in it, but I wanted to do the next step. I saw many problems that in the terms of how people collaborated, and at that time I was like the deputy manager for the developers, and I wanted to be really in charge, because I did lots of things, hiring and this kind of things, but I didn't have the final decision many times. And I felt like I was much more empathic. I could help the guys better to focus on the work and the things. But at that time, I didn't get a chance. So we tried something else within the company for a couple of months. But it was also not like too challenging. And that's why I decided, or at that time, I realized I want to now change my role. I want to go more in a leader's position to make developers grow and to create the environment they need to do a good job. So that was my passion at that time, and that's why I changed then and got the chance to do this for the next couple of years. Yeah.
Okay, so now you are on the non-final. This is the last job, right? Still Java.
Still Java. You never know whether it's the last job, but now I'm so far away from programming as I've not been before. But
what are you now?
Yeah, basically like head of engineering.
Okay.
But as there's like 3 teams, and as the teams they're really well self-organized, so they're really autonomous running. So most of my time I actually do also like kind of agile stuff, so help the company to become more agile in these things, and also enterprise architecture, because for quite a long time we didn't have someone dedicated for this topic. And I think like our landscape of applications that we have, like the board stuff as well with our custom stuff, it's not so consistent as it should and could be. So that's why we're putting more effort now in when writing new feature and stuff. We think a little bit more about in which system we should put what, so that we are still kind of flexible to react when there's end of life for a certain system, all these kind of things. And was pretty cool that we got the chance like 5 years ago to put everything in containers, like a Red Hat OpenShift. We had the problems like we already had a portal for the insurance customers, so for doing self-service, and was running on two WebLogic servers, to manage servers. If one would go down, okay. If the second would go down, you're offline, right? And if that happens at the weekend, it wasn't so nice. And we were thinking about like writing scripts that would automatically detect if the server is down, restart, and these kind of things. That's where we came across OpenShift and realized, okay, that's actually built in the platform. And by law, you could not yet go really to the cloud in Switzerland with insurance. There's kind of protection stuff. It had to be in Switzerland, right? So we started with OpenShift, and it was pretty
but
cool.
But you could go to Swiss region, or
but at that time they were not offering like that you can stay fixed in Swiss region, right? Yeah. And so we built it on premise, OpenShift cluster, and of course, like operation guys were doing, but still from a development perspective, you got a lot of contact with these things as well. And this was also pretty nice, because of course we had to rewrite our applications also to become leaner and smarter somehow.
Yeah, OpenShift on premise I really like. So I did also lots of projects. They work just really nice, and this OpenShift has nice CLI, and it really hides Kubernetes well. You know, if you don't have OpenShift, you have to deal with all the YAMLs, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, and the other thing what I liked, or what I found pretty convincing, was actually the Swiss railway company that's running the railways all over the place. They made a presentation that was pretty convincing too. They said like we have one fourth of our stuff on premise, 1/4 on Azure, 1/4 on Google Cloud, and 1/4 on AWS. And because you never know how they would change their pricing model and everything. But it's in all these installations, it's the same thing, OpenShift. So you can basically move your applications around, don't have to adapt them. But at any time they could say, okay, now we go 100% in Azure, whatever, and without major adaptations. That I found pretty convincing. You're not kind of dependent on a cloud provider in a sense.
Yeah, we have to. I have to invite you back just to talk about that, because if you're a smaller company and if you do this and you run, let's say, OpenShift in one cloud, it is expensive. So you will pay, far more than using, just a simple service of that cloud. So so if you're paying a lot for the independence, and if you can pay it, it's fine. But it is not like maybe
obvious decision or whatever.
No, not obvious decision. The if you go to the cloud, the entire thing which counts is budget, I would say. So the costs are immensely expensive. If you have endless amount of money, let's say almost, it doesn't matter. Then you can say, okay, then I abstract from the cloud and I'm completely independent from the cloud. But you pay a lot. You pay more than twice as much. I get it. And this is hard to if you can prove it in a usual company, Kubernetes goes away and we do serverless stuff. But if they have if there is no sense of budget or costs, they don't care. So therefore, because if you think about this, what you can do, you can go to the cloud and install the largest available Kubernetes cluster, and you are done. It runs all the time. You pay all the time, and everyone is happy. But if you use, let's say, Fargate or serverless, you will only pay what you use. So if it's not used, you don't pay anything. But you are depending on AWS. But you pay maybe 10% of the price. This is interesting discussion. The same with databases and we had all over the place, because I also do lots of AWS and cloud architectures. And it's always this complete different discussion than before, because before we had already data center. Computing didn't cost us anything usually. So you have the cluster, you just can run whatever you like. And our architecture was about, simplicity, maintainability, vendor neutrality. But in the cloud, some of my clients pay a huge amount of money just to run OpenShift in the cloud. And if you will translate it to a regular Java project, I could, for the same amount of money, migrate it 10 times to all clouds. So it doesn't matter actually. Or put it this way to you: if you if you let's say have a small Whitefly app or Quarkus app in a container, and you push it, let's say to this is Azure App Service, is called the service on Azure, or Fargate on AWS. So I would say the deployment is very similar. You write, I would say, maybe 20 lines of JSON, not if you like YAML, and you are done. But of course, you are somehow depending on Azure, somehow on AWS. But in both cases, you're running container, and what you are depending on, the name of the variable, what the Docker URI is, or what the CPU is, and AWS has vZPU, and Azure has different naming of the CPUs. But I mean, this is trivial stuff for developers, right? So, but if you go to Kubernetes on clouds, then Kubernetes is an own cloud. And this is very similar to me. Kubernetes on AWS is similar relation like Spring on Whitefly. Because Spring is an application server and Whitefly is an application server. And if you put Spring on Whitefly, you can use you can forget about Whitefly, but you still see the Whitefly, because you could actually use Whitefly functionality if you are a Spring developer. The same is true for the clouds. So I saw projects with Kubernetes where they had, manage, for instance, users. You have Kubernetes user and you have the cloud users, and you have to keep it in sync. The Kubernetes service has to access the database, so you have to give them somehow the credentials. So what I'm saying in the cloud, you have with Kubernetes, it's more complex than just using whatever cloud provides. This is interesting observation in the recent 3 years I had.
Cool. Yeah, I will definitely have to come back to that, yeah.
Yeah, next time, because otherwise we will talk about 1.5 hours just about that. This is interesting. Everywhere we have the discussion, actually. It's like hot discussion right now. And but point being, in the cloud, I never deployed Kubernetes. So everyone asked me about that. After explaining this in this way, there was no Kubernetes in my project right now in the cloud. On premise, we use Rancher or OpenShift. It's great. So this is the most common one, and this is Kubernetes, but I don't care because it's already installed. I don't have to do with it. I just deploy my applications, and I'm fine. So this is I don't care about that. Yeah.
Now that you were talking about running, you were saying just one thing came to my mind, because we were talking about what we were doing in leisure time. Actually, at that time when you were, I was contracting you for the designing that architecture, we missed one big chance. Remember? We could have been the new Strava. You had started this Strava E5.
Yeah, this is running.
Tracking for our running and biking and stuff. Yeah, we should have invested more time there.
That
would have been
this is true. It was just a small project, and you are the major contributor. So you contributed actually. I wrote a CRUD, and you wrote anything else. This was actually cool. We could store the how much we ran actually exactly.
Yeah. And we have like all the yeah, actually, I think we already could use it to track like how many kilometers we had on our shoes or bikes and this kind of things. Yeah,
extremely cool. Yeah, Strava. We should rename it back then, but this is always the case, right? So it's just fun. And I started with it because someone asked me about some JSF UI. It's like what you can build, maybe so like running mile calculator, whatever. And I showed it at the JAX somewhere, because I was always asked about projects, and I had to sign NDAs, with your company, with every company. So I couldn't never talk about my project. So I said this is actually great because at least I can show the running app, right? Because this is somehow similar to my stuff. But what your company is doing right now, is this insurance again?
Yeah, it's again insurance. Yeah.
Okay. And the last time we met per email, or we had a contact. So you asked me about Quarkus, I think, and I say I would use Quarkus. And what was stunning, like 3 weeks later, or was it maybe a little bit longer? You told me it runs.
Yeah,
it works.
Yeah, and it's running like crazy. So actually,
your developers are great. I mean, you migrated the entire thing in 3 weeks, or what was it?
Well, it was not everything was running then, but actually I'm lucky we have really cool guys, and I mean it's like with a sports club. The more cool guys you have in a team, the easier it's getting to attract other cool guys, right?
Yeah.
If they realize that you're on a certain level, yeah. And they were all keen, working on that thing. We had really the problem. We had like 2 application server. We had some Wildflies and then some Thorntail stuff. Thorntail end of life. Okay, Wildfire could be the option, but it's kind of too big. And we have basically two types of applications. There's like a few portal applications, and then there's microservices, object-oriented, service-oriented architecture, like to wiring wiring systems, right? And we have about 25 of these SOA services, and we started with migrating those. Of course, we took the least complex one in the beginning. And yeah, it was pretty straightforward, and the guys were super happy with the featuring and everything from Quarkus. And after these 3 weeks, I think like we had 2 or 3 of them running.
Okay.
And today we have all the services. They are microservices. They're running on Quarkus, and we are in the midst of migrating the portal applications. Probably in 2 weeks we'll probably be fine with it. And the super surprisingly unexpected fact is that not only memory consumption has dropped a lot, but also CPU consumption has dropped a lot, and execution time is a lot faster. So it's really the results are overwhelming at the moment. It's really.
But it's not only you're not using Graal. You're running on the JVM, right?
Yeah.
And how much could you save? Do you know it roughly?
I don't know exactly, but my guess would be like at least 80% in terms of memory consumption, and performance boost is like 2 or 3 times at least.
Wow.
Depends a little bit on the system, yeah, but it's really measurable. Like we see it in the OpenShift cluster, right? Like how big the ports are, and now we can resize them all. Like you see the CPU is like trapping 0.01%, and memory is also like really low. So that's unexpectedly cool.
So you could actually save money now with.
Of course. Yeah. You could buy running shoes and go out and
yeah, sure.
Have a jog. Yeah.
Oh, no, you should rewrite Strava now.
Yeah. I think I recently read about how for what price it was sold actually, and we would have been a good deal for us, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. What's also interesting, as you remember, the new New World stuff in 2005 was around. Yeah. As you hired me. You actually hired me, or the other guy. You were this.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The code we wrote back then could be actually easily migrated to Quarkus right now. It would be mostly compatible. This is the great story. Yeah. I have other customers. There's also, I would say, 2006, 2007, similar story on Visual. Now Visual Age of WebSphere. And we did similar refactoring. And they hired me 2 years ago again. And I also show them Open Liberty and Quarkus. And I saw the code from back then. And with minor adjustments, we could actually migrate it to Quarkus. Because if you take a look at EJBs back then, it was stateless. Okay, Quarkus would be a no request scoped. The injection was at EJB, you could rename it with at inject, or what you could even do is you could even stay on Open Liberty, migrate it to microprofile first, and then if it runs in microprofile, then you can run it on Quarkus.
Oh, nice.
So there is a really nice path. If you have old running application, let's say Open Liberty or Glassfish, whatever you have, all the application servers understand microprofile. And Quarkus also understands microprofile. So my trick is, on the server, migrate on the server to microprofile, and then usually it works without problems on Quarkus.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And I mean, there's still a lot of old Java stuff around. And what I always find fascinating, I mean, like 10 years ago, people started singing the song that Java's time is over. We have to go for something else. And it's still around, right?
Yeah. And then last trick, because you are a head of engineering, is, I don't know whether you know that it's actually working. If you have now your Quarkus app with, I assume, with JAX-RS, with the path and dependency injection, this is what you are using. You can actually take it, package it. There's a Quarkus extension called, I think, Lambda HTTP REST, something like this. And then you can run it on AWS or Azure functions as a function. So this is the same code. And what function means is there is no Docker, there is no Kubernetes. You're paying the first million invocations are free. And we do the math for, did all the time, because the question, how expensive is it? If you have 2 invocations per second, the entire month, 24/7, it will cost you roughly 11 euros.
Wow, that's nothing.
And this I'm just saying, what is possible is the same old architecture we did, 16 years ago. And in my current projects, we have such a Lambda, we have 400 classes in it. So it's not like it's a small one. This is like a larger one. And you can have up to 10 gigs of RAM and 6 virtual CPUs if you like. So this is not like something small. You can. This is what I do a lot, serverless Java. So we just pay as you go, and there is no infrastructure. It's just and this also from security. This thing is more secure than Docker because it runs basically in a virtual machine, which is started and stopped all the time and is compliant and verified or whatever. But just to telling you that
that's good to know. I mean, of course, we are thinking about going natively to the cloud. So
warning you, it is not like picking Kubernetes and going with the same Kubernetes to the cloud. You will lose a lot of money without a lot of benefit. So my thing is, if I go to the cloud, let's use the cloud and save money if possible, and have at least additional features, not just have the same story like a data center, because it's like refactoring. If you go to old app and we refactor everything, for my clients, they don't care whether it is refactored or not. They say, okay, in best possible case there will be no errors, no problems, but usually you're always introducing problems during migrations, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Thank you. It was a blast. So I should re-invite you back. We can talk, in a few months about cloud strategies. Quarkus in the clouds.
If I have enough background, then sure.
No, but you are head of engineering. I mean, you are the manager now, so you can ask me. I can try to explain you. Maybe I oversaw something, so it would be interesting, from this perspective.
Yeah, no, I would be happy to be back. Yeah, of course. Or else we talk about mountain biking, running, whatever. We will find the topic, no problem.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Hey, by the way, no, thank you. Where people can find you? Are you on Twitter or whatever, blog?
Actually, I'm on Twitter, but my Twitter is like a really, let's say, not actively used as dynamic_123. But I'm in contrast to you, I'm a little bit on social media because, Instagram, basically because of my second passion, the sports stuff, and my kids are there, so.
What's your Instagram? How to call it? Instagram handle?
Yeah. Wait a second. I don't even know it by heart. But
you say you are a social guy and you don't know your handles.
Yeah, like I have it's dynamic. So small letters, everything _DLE.
DLE. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, well, I'm not so famous. I have like 400 something followers. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm not even on Instagram, so you're 400 times more famous than me.
No, it's not more than 400 times. It's I say
endless.
Endless, yeah, endless more times. Yeah, exactly. Coming back to the math, so we have to be strict.
Precise, exactly.
Yeah, precise. Yeah.
No, but it's actually not calculatable, right? Because 400 divided by 0.
Exactly.
Perfect. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.